The Board of Education meeting is called to order in light of many things, of which one of them may be the storms in North Alabama and several other things we have going on. Would you please join me in a moment of silent prayer? Thank you. Please join me in the pledge allegiance. Salute. Pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. White, please call the roll and make sure we have a quorum.
Anna Bowman. Here. Earl Hoover.
Here.
Fred Kelly.
Here.
Herman Kendrick.
Here.
Amy Tosley. Here.
We do have a quorum. You have before you the agenda for today's meeting. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The agenda is adopted. Now we need to consider the personnel report. Take a couple minutes and look it over before we ask Dr. Murphy to talk.
Board members, as you're looking at that, let me apologize for your getting that this morning. I was in Montgomery yesterday. Sounds like an excuse. I do apologize. This is in front of you in 90-day review time. HR did their part, superintendent didn't.
Any idea of how many more people we got retired between now and June 1st? Lining up to the door here.
There's several I've already seen, but now I don't have an idea of how many.
First up, Dr. Murphy.
Board members, you do have before you a personnel report, and I'd like to just kind of walk through some of this with you, if I may. There is one request for employment. As you all are aware, Rita Barksdale, assistant principal at Hoover High School, has chosen to retire effective April 1 and has served us well. So first of all, kudos to her for reaching this milestone for her. We posted the position to fill that assistant principal position to the end of the year. And this is a very difficult time to post for a position. It's difficult because most people are obviously in March gainfully employed for a position. So this position is just being filled to end of the year, which will then repost for a full-time assistant principal. I think one of the things that you get when you post something in March, and it's a 2-month or so stint, if you will, is that most people likely aren't going to come out of a school where they may have a tenured status to apply for a position that's such a short term. I will also tell you that this is the first time we began the exercise, as we were advised by our attorney Whit Colvin to do, which was to say to our principals, let's have a committee of individuals in place to do interviews. And so this particular position was interviewed by committee with the principal and 3 other representatives with him. And then we walked those same steps that our attorney asked us to do in terms of bringing that to the superintendent's office and asking that I get the top 3, at least the top 3 names, which I got 4. I interviewed 3 of the 4. And so my selection, you see, is supports the selection of that committee. I do think that this has been a good exercise, and so I thank our attorney for saying to us that the way position should be filled is not a single principal, though we have lots of confidence in our principals, coming to the single superintendent to bring it to you, and it just almost is not as thoughtful as it should be. So I want to thank Whit for that. I have discovered some things through this process, though, and that is the timing of this has been difficult. But I also want to always make sure that when we get recommendations sent to us, we're getting the very cream of the crop of all of the applicants that were before the committee before it gets to our level. So this has been a good exercise. It's been an interesting exercise. I've learned some things, but you have before you the recommendation for the fill for Hoover High School. I'm also pleased that Brian Phillips is going to be able to add an additional person to his department. This is something absolutely needed, and he's chosen to transfer one of his existing people into this seat, and now we'll be filling that seat with another individual. But this is a large animal. Where's Brian? And so I'm pleased for us to be able to do that for that department. You have one change of status. You have 6 requests for leave of absence. You have 1 resignation. And it is that time of the year where we'll get lots of retirements coming to us. And by the way, for these 8 individuals, it represents 155 years of service to children. So what a milestone again for these individuals. We applaud them. We're sad, but I do ask that you accept this report. Board members, I'd also remind you, anytime there is a part of a personnel report you want us to vote separately on, you can always ask that we split this out, like let's approve all the leave of absences singular from the transfer, singular from employment. So I just remind you that if that's ever something you want to do, you don't have to approve a personnel report in its entirety. We can divide it out. It is my recommendation you approve the personnel report.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On the assistant principal position, is this a 2-month position to June 1st or 5 months to 15th?
No, it is June the 30th because contractual, most of our contracts for administrators began July 1.
And it's my understanding this individual is currently retired.
He is retired.
Is he going to be paid how? How's this compensation going to be determined based upon the $30,000 a year cap for retirees? Is he coming out of retirement or?
Unless there's a contract done separately for him, my understanding right now is that he would just be paid that portion of the regular contract.
What portion?
Of the annual pay, just divided out for the 2-3 months that he'll be working.
Yes. So you're saying you would take the 33,000 and he's getting 2 months of that, or what would that be? 3 months of that, I guess.
So he's not going to be.
Versus a look at a daily rate of pay.
Right. Now, I haven't seen anything on the pay yet, and this, Mary is out of town right now, and I can verify that. But
he's not going to get paid at the same level that Rita Barksdale is being paid for the 3 months.
I can't say 100% I haven't seen, but that I do not believe so.
Well, there would only really be 2 ways that, in my mind, could be done. One would be based on whatever credentials and experience he has, what would that daily rate of pay be? Or you would take the 33,000 and pay him the pro rata amount of 2 to 3 months of that amount. But there should be nothing about the existing salary of who's in that seat that he would be assured or guaranteed. That won't happen. It will be either or. One of those 2 options, I believe, would be the only way you could do that.
I don't think you can do a daily rate because his daily rate would certainly exceed $33,000 a year if you annualize it. So
The position was posted as though a non-retired person may be selected. We posted it, for the normal level and the range of salary in that.
you might
And since
want to clarify his expectation.
Yes, and also, Mr. President, he is retired, so we don't have payroll match expenses such as contribution to retirement,
Right.
medical, because he already has that,
Right.
right? So,
Well, I can actually say to you, unless I'm missing something, it should be the 30,000 and the number of months of that which he serves. So that'll be a part of how I'm recommending that to you.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Go ahead, Whit.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Just make sure that you're not, but that you're not creating a recommendation that can't be unwound if it's not, doesn't turn out to be the case, and that it's really clear. It's because it sounds like we're not sure, but that perhaps that 80, whatever, I don't know what an AP makes, but I would think, probably $70,000-$80,000, something
The
around there.
range was like 83 to 103.
And so a pro rata, a 2-month, of that would not necessarily, I don't think, exceed the retirement amounts unless that person's worked in another capacity for another state agency. But
Let me offer this to the board, and certainly your pleasure. Let me ask that you approve the personnel report minus this recommendation for employment. Apparently, there are a few questions just in our shuffle we didn't get well. I don't think that would impede Hoover High School at this point. Our next board meeting is April the 10th. And let me be more definitive with you, and I apologize I'm not this morning.
Can she not just recommend the position? I mean,
she can.
the compensation is an operational
The
thing.
compensation will operate independently anyway. I mean, I would assume unless you do a special arrangement, which it doesn't sound like is necessary, you would just pay this person based on the job anyway. And then, of course, if the person turns out to exceed the retirement cap, then ultimately that's that person's problem. They don't. My guess is he would come in and say, I don't want to be. You got to stop me here. If it got to that point anyway, that's fairly common.
And we certainly don't want to get into that situation where we've employed somebody who really can't give us the service they need because they top out too early in the process.
Exactly right.
So I think could I change my mind one more time? What I'd like to do is to ask that you approve as we've presented to you, and if you would allow me to come back to you and report that salary amount. Is that okay with?
That's perfect.
Just legally do it the way that we should best do that. So do I hear a preference for how you want to do that?
Mr. President, I have a question before we vote. Dr. Murphy, as it relates to the process, given that we are under a federal desegregation order, and given that we have these green factors, one, do you believe that this process would be defendable if you had to face scrutiny from either Judge Heikkila or from the parties in our lawsuit?
I do, because I believe we've been in compliance with what we've been advised to do, which is to stop the singular, I'm the principal, I want this person, take it to the superintendent, I rubber stamp that, so to speak, or okay that, and just roll it right onto a personnel report. We are becoming much more, I hate this word, it's overused, intentional and thoughtful about what this looks like. So in this particular case, you had a principal and 3 assistant principals who signed off that these were their recommendations. It came to me, I did the same in terms of interviewing 3 of those 4. So we are certainly setting in place and setting in motion a much more thoughtful way about how we are employing individuals, and much more thoughtful about the diversity, I hope, through this process of the employment of individuals.
And you mentioned that you wanted to get the cream of the crop as far as the candidate. Do you believe that you got the cream of the crop from that committee?
There is certainly a trust factor involved here, so that when 3 or 4 candidates are brought to my level, I would either have to go back and look at everybody who applied, or trust that they were pushing forward to me the most viable of those candidates. And so I would absolutely say the same would be for you guys. For me, that there would have to be a level of trust that I did my homework and I came forward with the best one for you. I do think, Mr. Kendrick, what we've run into is it's a March posting and it's this length of time, and most people aren't going to leave a position to come take a chance on being a 2 or 3 month AP. So I can't say that there was a huge cadre of people who were sitting out there waiting for this particular opportunity. I certainly don't want to slight those who did apply, I just don't think this is the absolute best timing for finding your candidates who want long-term stints with you, which is why I'm hoping then after this short interim, we repost this and select a full-time assistant principal.
Okay, we've got the personnel report.
Can I be clear how I've presented it to you? I am asking that you approve this report in its entirety, and Whit and I and HR will be exceptionally thoughtful and careful about how this salary piece is done for the assistant principal interim at Hoover High School. So,
Dr. Murphy has recommended that we approve the personnel report that you have before you. She will sort out the compensation issue on the assistant principal with the HR director and Mr. Colvin. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel actions? Have a second? All in favor?
Question. Jeremy, on the resignation of the mechanic of transportation, why did he leave? Was he leave because of better pay?
So he's actually going to Jefferson County, and Jefferson County pays a little more for their road mechanics.
Where are you with your needs in your department on? Are you short-staffed? Are you with bus drivers? Where are you with that?
We are actively recruiting bus drivers. We put, Ms. Williams put a application out on Indeed.com, and we received a lot of response from that. So we probably had, 15 maybe in the last week. So we're sorting through those, but yes, we will need bus drivers.
We didn't have a single applicant on the state side. I mean, even though that seems a lot, that's very minimal compared to years past.
In some cases, you actually have to chip in and drive if you don't have substitutes. So I mean, we are very, we're adequately and safely staffed, but we're approaching the point we've got to have some more drivers.
Yes, absolutely. There's days that our office staff, we drive, yes.
That's not unique to Hoover either.
No, sir.
No, I see the buses on the side of the highway before you go.
and I will say that Jeremy has been very thoughtful to bring forward to our CSFO, to Michelle, some strategies and thoughts and plans. I have reviewed those, and we will continue to talk about some of those. We do know, board members, as we go forward, and Jeremy's situation has really brought this to focus, and that is we have some of our support staff, such as transportation, who are very much in need of some additional consideration for compensation, because everybody in the area, well, not all school districts have buses, but those who do, everybody's vying for the same critical people, and it depends on who puts the most dimes on the table, who's pulling the bus drivers. So Jeremy has done his homework well and has carried that forward to CSFO. It is with me, and there are parts of that that I think we've got to take care of more in terms of looking at the salary schedule for all support staff, rather than just starting to look at, okay, let's do some 2% across the board for everybody in transportation. When you take that piecemeal approach, then CNP wants to know about their 2% and secretarial staff. So I think we've got to take more of a holistic view at how we address some of our support staff salaries. And Jeremy's done a great job of putting that to focus for me. So thank y'all.
And that was the reason for my question. You obviously do an outstanding job, but we are aware that we've got to get aligned in some areas with cost. With the help of CSFO, Dr. Murphy and staff, tremendous cutbacks were put out there to get our budget into a positive balance for the year. It won't remain that. We still have got to maintain employees, got to pay them fairly, and not continue to lose to other districts. Thanks for your job, but the question was for that reason.
And Jeremy, how many additional bus drivers, routes, buses are we going to need as a result of our rezoning? Best guess, best calculation.
We're estimating around 10 extra regular routes for rezoning. The interdistrict transfer shows are kind of the wild card now. So we're not really sure how many we'll have to add to take care of that part of the rezoning, but probably around 10. As far as the buses goes, we kept around 10 or 12 buses that are in great shape. We'll do a little cosmetic work to them to put those back in service for rezoning to keep them having to buy new buses.
Those 10 singular routes, or do you double down and get really 5 buses?
They'll probably be 10 double routes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
We currently have 40 double routes district-wide, so there'll probably be double routes.
The situation at the state level continues to exist where it's really no economic benefit to do double routing.
If you unload the bus completely, you can count it as 2 routes. If you leave one student on there, it's a single route. So we have to make everybody get
Yeah, that makes sense, though.
Yes, sir. Yes, we're gonna,
Two or not to get off.
we're gonna,
Stand right here for a minute.
we will be able to be reimbursed for the route, yes, sir.
Good.
I do have one other question as well. On the retirement portion, when someone retires and they come back to work, this 30,000 cap or 33, whatever it is, does that on that person, it's just it's 30,000 a year for them. So if they had made 30,000 in 2 months, you can't do that.
Not the state
Okay,
doesn't.
so it has to be, okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, but otherwise, that would be more contractual for
Exactly.
our service than, yeah.
Mhm.
And I do think this morning has given us an opportunity to say procedurally going forward, if we employ people who have retired, how are we gonna come back to the table in terms of salaries? So we have a takeaway from this morning.
And don't forget part of that transportation package for bus drivers. Bus drivers eat free. That's what they always say. Okay, I've got a motion in the second, personnel report and recommendation of Dr. Murphy. All in favor? Any opposed? Personnel report is approved. Dr. Murphy?
As a second matter of personnel, but not on your personnel report, I have some information for you on a contract principal, Anna Whitney. Ms. Whitney is currently a principal with us in the Second Chance program at Hoover Hall. She is in the 3rd year of a 3-year contract. That contract ends on June the 30th of 2018. It started July 1 of 2015. You have her contract attached with the information that you have. Ms. Whitney and I have had a good number of conversations, and she and I mutually agree that her talents and passions might be better used in our school district in a different seat. And she has asked to be removed from her position as principal at the Second Chance program. I will tell you, board members, we're going to look for the very best seat to have her serve the school district. We already know that we have additional needs in our special services department. Ms. Whitney does have credentials in the area of special services, and she's expressed interest in special services with us. I would anticipate a seat in special services for her, given that's her area of credentials, and we want to utilize her talents and skills in that way. But what you have before you is my recommendation to you to non-renew Ms. Whitney's contract. It is ending again on June the 30th. This is based on conversations and a mutual agreement. This does allow us as a school district some additional flexibility in terms of administrative options for us at the Second Chance Center, at the alternative program. And so by law, I'm to advise Ms. Whitney 90 days in advance and have before you for as an actionable item this recommendation coming from me that you non-renew the contract for Ms. Whitney. This is not adversarial. She has served us well for many years. I acknowledge her for that. She believes it's time for a change, and I mutually agree with that. I'm asking you to non-renew Anna Whitney's contract as principal at the Second Chance Center, our alternative program.
Okay, the superintendent recommended, you just heard, non-renewal of Anna Whitney's contract as principal of Second Chance. Her contract date terminates June 30th, 2018. Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation, superintendent?
So,
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Any questions, Dr. Murphy?
on the instruction, I think you said instructional support position that you anticipate
Special services.
special services. Will she have to, will that be posted and
Yes, sir.
the community of people who to believe they're eligible to apply, and her
Yes.
name just goes in a hat like that?
Yes, so Miss Whitney has special services. She is entitled under the tenure law to go back to a seat of teacher of special services.
Mhm.
I certainly believe there are opportunities for her that might include more than just going back to a teaching position, though there's nothing more reputable than to teach children. But we are going to post a program, a position for a specialist in special services. She has sent me a letter saying, hey, I'm going to apply for that,
Okay.
but she will follow the same process as anyone else who's interested. There are no guaranteed seats in our school district other than those to which one's tenured.
Okay, got a motion and second, vote for approval, pending no further questions, superintendent's recommendation is approved. Dr. Murphy? All right,
Alright,
I didn't forget this time.
The only other item, as we're approaching summer, we have typically had a 4-day, 10-hour summer work schedule. And we have polled our central office folks, I believe, Dr. Simmons, and our principals. And it is a preponderance of votes to stay with the summer schedule that we've had. There may be an exception in a program, which I believe, Jeremy, you've asked to be an exception to, because on these hot days, trying to pull a 10-hour day is not in their best interest. So I do have that one request for exception. But unless, Dr. Simmons, you need to add to that, what I want to ask the board is that you consider that, and we'll ask you to vote on allowing us the 4-day work week, 10-hour at our subsequent board meeting in April. I just wanted to give that heads up.
In addition to the personnel considerations here on the 4-day, 10-hour, a few years back, there was a fairly concerted effort made to look at it from a building operational standpoint. And that is, since you have essentially a skeleton crew for the majority of the summer because most of the teachers are out, and trying to find a way to monitor the HVAC requirements is a big one, the lighting requirements and all that, to reduce the utility costs during the summertime for space that wasn't utilized. I don't know if that's something to really look at.
It's still a consideration because we still have control over being able to adjust our thermostats on those days that we're not in our building.
It got to be ridiculous at some point because there's actually an attempt to look at consolidating school staffs in one building instead of 2 buildings, as an example, just to try to conserve that. Of course, you can't shut everything down because of what might tend to grow in the absence of air conditioning, but just another thought.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Dr. Murphy? If not, the next board meeting will be scheduled for Tuesday, April 10th, 5:30 here in the central office. Meeting is adjourned.